already.
All right, so your reporter right now will be whoever has the shortest hair in your group. Should have already talked about it, so that's just no problem. All right. So table 6. Table 6, what did you guys get for IQR? Okay, so we're saying 3. Any table gets something different than 3. Yep. Okay. Anyone get something different than 3? I think in a previous class we got like at least 4 different answers. Some decimals, yes. 2. Any other answers out there? Okay, so there can only be one right one for IQR. So let's go over it. Does order matter when you're identifying your Q3 and your Q1? Yes. Yes. So I think that's what we did last time. Let me just copy it over again. Let me know if I missed a number. And then also before you find your Q3 and Q1, what do you have to find first? Your median of the whole thing. So what was my median of the whole thing? Okay, we must have not talked about that. So someone saying that the median of the whole thing is 77. Does that look like there's equal numbers on each side? So try again. Is it with 76 in the middle? Is there an equal amount of numbers on each side? Brooklyn? 76.5 is my median. So maybe like draw this out if you didn't have that or if you guessed the wrong median. It has to be right in the middle of your data. If you end up with 2 numbers in the middle, like we do here, 76 and 77 are both in the middle, then you average them out, add them together, divide them by 2. Or things like what's the middle of 76 and 77? 76.5. So another way you can think of it. So that separates my lower and my upper half. As you can see by the line, that's why I draw it there. You never cross out your median. So my median's in between those numbers. So I am allowed to cross out these numbers. So like the 76, I end up with 2 in the middle again. What's between 75 and 76? 75.5, good. And then do the same for your upper quartile. And we have 2 numbers in the middle. What is between 78 and 79? Good. And if you have to actually do the math to figure that out, do it. Add them together, dividing by 2, you get 78.5. So then now when we're finding our interquartile range, it is 78.5 minus 75.5. So that means the correct answer is what? What's my IQ? Correct answer. Yes. 3. It's hoping to get more of a response. So what's my IQR class? 3, because Q3 minus Q1. We just identified them, subtract them. All right, now interquartile range. We compare that to like just normal range, maximum minus the minimum. It's how spread out your data is. So if I quantify it to be 3, would you say that that's a pretty low number?
Yeah.
Yeah. The smaller the IQR, the less spread out it is. And then for interquartile range specifically, that's just like the middle part of your data. I think on that. Okay, so keep that in mind. We just practiced calculating that. Now answer number 2 with your group. Be prepared to speak for your group. Right now we still have the same reporter. It will change though later. So for number 2, you're figuring out how many values in the data set are less than Q1, between Q1 and the median, between the median and Q3, and greater than Q3. You got a minute. Table 7 will start with you. How many values in this data set are less than Q1?
2.
Okay, and I won't say if they're right or wrong yet until the end, so just so you know. Table 8, what about between Q1 and the median? 2. Table 9, between the median and Q3.
3.
Table 1, greater than Q3.
2.
Okay, so let's see, maybe we, so maybe some people, the reason why they said we didn't get there yet is because they didn't understand the question. Literally, once you've identified your Q1, your Q3, and then what is Q2 for again?
Wait, what?
What is Q2 also called? Okay, good, because they just use median here. You're literally just counting. All right, so like less than Q1, my Q1 was between these two numbers. I'm counting 1, 2 values. Make sense? Then between Q1 and the median, here's Q1, here's my median. How many values are between them? Median and Q3, here to here, how many values? 2. 2 values. So fix that. If you put 3, it should actually be 2. So there's only 2 numbers in between these 2 dotted lines, am I right? And then greater than Q3, just 2 numbers. So let's talk about that. Your quartile, your interquartile range, not interquartile range, your quartiles split your data into what? Not necessarily 2s. Quarters. It splits your data into quarters. So I should have an equal amount in each section. If I don't, then I must have done something wrong. Questions on that? Okay, now you have kind of a bit more like reflection type questions. They are printed on your paper. I'll give you like 2 minutes to discuss them with your group before I just start calling on tables to tell me what you think. Now, it's fine if you give me a wrong answer. I can do a lot with wrong answers. I could like steer you in a different direction, but like at least have something to say when I say, oh, table 2, what does the median tell you about data? Like things like that. All right, talk about it with your group. 2 minutes, all these questions right here. Today. Tell you about, repeat it for me one more time. About how to split the data evenly. It is not the average, but it's similar to the average in that it tells you like a typical value, right? Like if I told you the average temperature today is 100 degrees, does that mean it's 100 degrees every hour of the day? No, it's the average, but in other words, it's around 100 degrees, right? So the median also tells me what most of my data is around. So let me go back. Like my median being 76.5, the rest of my data is around that number. So it's similar, not exactly the same though, because you calculate them differently. So those would be my 2 different measures of center, by the way. So let me add that in here. You guys added 2. So it's the central / typical value. So like for the one we just did, the 76.5 would be a typical value for those kids' heart rates per minute. Good. Table 3. What does IQR tell us about a data set? Okay, can you tell me if it's a measure of center or a measure of variability? Good, so IQR is one of our measures of variability / spread. I usually use the word spread more because it's literally how spread out your data is. IQR specifically is how spread out the middle part of your data is. And I'll give you a visual for that later. But yeah, variability / spread. So the smaller the IQR, the less spread out and so forth. Table 4. How do the median and quartiles divide the data? Can you tell me how the median divides the data? So median is similar to average, but it's not. Okay, so try again. Median is my class middle number. So if it's my middle number, it splits my data in half. Good. So half, like 50%. I'll put half for this part. For that's median specifically. What do quartiles? Technically all the quartiles, but Q1, Q2, Q3, they split my data into quarters. So like 25% increments. So let me give you a visual of that. We use our quartiles when we make our box plot. So here's just like a random box plot. Where would my Q1 go?
Left side of the box.
Left side of the box. So I would draw this too. The visual. Right here is where my Q1 goes. Where does my Q2 go?
In the middle.
In the middle of your box. Where, well, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be in the middle, but wherever the middle line is, this line is where your Q2 is. And then where does Q3 go? The right side of the box. So, like the whiskers are my minimum and maximum. And here's how it splits the data. So going from my minimum to my Q1, that's going to be 25% of my data. Going from Q1 to Q2, that's another 25%. Q2 to Q3 is how much percent? Another 25%. And then Q3 to the maximum is what percent? So that'll help you answer the next one if you haven't yet. So table 5. How much of the data is between Q1 and Q3? 50%. All right, this is a great visual representation. So when you see like those box and whisker plots with like a really long whisker, that's still 25% of your data. That just means it's more spread out and all that stuff. Questions? Okay. Sure, we take notes as we go. I'll wait like 10 seconds before I switch screens. If you ever miss anything though, it is uploaded in Schoology, like if you go to the restroom and come back or whatever. Okay, so next part. Now we mastered like 3 out of the 4 things. The last thing we need to talk about is mean absolute deviation. So this is not on your paper. You will do it for the data set about the heartbeats in a little bit. This is not the same data. Okay, this is a different set of data. Just kind of follow along and pay attention because it is a long process. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so here's my data, my different data points. And what we're talking about right now is called mean absolute deviation, or MAD for short. So the M stands for mean. You guys know how to find the mean, right? Hopefully. So that's me adding up all these numbers and then dividing by however many numbers I added. The computer already did that for me. So mean for this data set that's in yellow is 5. Questions on that, Karen?
You just put in the numbers?
No. Do not copy these numbers onto the table because they are not the same numbers. You will be doing this with the data that's on your paper, but you need to see one first, okay? Everyone is just looking right now and asking questions if you're confused. So do we know how to find the mean? All right, if you forget, it is on the very first part of your warm-up. Remember, we said that was true, the very first one. So do that. I found the mean to be 5. And then the D in MAD stands for deviation. So deviation is how far something is from, and this time we're doing it from the mean. Okay, so D stands for deviation. So this is how we're getting this number. What's 1 minus 5?
-4.
Okay, good. What's 2 minus 5? -3. What's 3 minus 5? And then let's go down like to some positive numbers. What's 12 minus 5? So that's how we're getting the deviation. And it also helps you in the table too. It says data value minus the mean. Okay, so that's our deviation. Questions on deviation. Kind of like difference from the mean. And then A stands for absolute value. Usually 9th graders don't remember what absolute value is, so let me remind you. Absolute value is basically these bars tell you to take the absolute value of the number. And that just means like how far is that number away from 0. So table 6, same reporter at least for now. How far is -8 away from 0? 8. So then table 7, if I'm taking the absolute value of 8, how far is 8 away from 0? Also 8. Do you guys understand absolute value now? Okay, so what's the absolute value of -4? And that's how we're getting this number. What's the absolute value of -3? And that's how we're getting this number. What's the absolute value of 0? We're getting that number. What's the absolute value of 7? And that's how we're getting that number. So does everyone understand how to fill out the table? Okay, so we'll be doing it in a second. But then you're probably like, okay, so why are we filling out this table? Let me tell you. Because we're gonna now take the mean of this column, and that's gonna be our MAD, our mean absolute deviation. So let me highlight that. So once I figure out my absolute deviation from the mean, I'm now going to take the mean of the average of these numbers. So I'm going to add them all together, divide by however many things I added, which includes the 0, if one of them's a 0. And then I get that my MAD is 2.5 for this random data set that is not on your paper. Questions on that? No, it's a long process. Okay, you'll get through. But what you are going to do now is with that heartbeat data that is on your paper, you're going to calculate the MAD. You're going to fill out the table with your group and then figure out what the MAD is. I'll start by giving you 5 minutes and then I'll check in. Moving on. Look at the screen so far. I'll kind of drag it down. Sorry, I can't unsleeve it when there's people watching. So I'll just come all the way over here. Anyway, you should have all had that mean. And then in this column, you should have done all the subtracting. Here's what it should look like. So compare. These should be negative. Doesn't really make a difference when you take the absolute value, no. But like, let's do good practice. 72 minus 76.75 is negative 4.75 and so forth. Questions on how to find the deviation from the mean. So that's why you don't round early, because if you did, then all these numbers would be slightly different and then mess up the rest of it. Now, here's what it should look like when you took the absolute value of that previous column. Same number, just they're all positive now. Questions on that? Please, for the love, do not do the deviation in your head. Do the actual subtraction. But that's what you should have in your table. Question, Ron? Yes. Now, moving on from that, the main question is, what is the MAD? So if you don't know how to find the MAD, maybe write this down in your notes. We're now taking the numbers in this column, our absolute deviations, and averaging those, taking the mean of those. Give me a minute. So I'm adding up these numbers. What did you guys get when you added those up? 16 even, like no decimal? Yes or no? Yeah. Okay. So that's what we got earlier too. What do I divide by? Because there are 8 data points. It should match like what you divided by over. So then what's 16 divided by 8? 2. And yeah, my MAD is 2. Overall, that answers the question, the MAD being 2. Questions on that process? If you made a mistake, do you see where the mistake was made? Yeah. Okay, great. So there's that. You will practice in a little bit, but make sure that you can answer these questions that are also printed on your paper, wherever they are. They're more like reflective. All right, so you need to know how to calculate the IQR. You need to know how to calculate the MAD and so forth. So the MAD being 2 for this data set, do you guys remember what the IQR was when we calculated it? 3. Aren't 2 and 3 pretty close to each other? They are different numbers though, and we'll talk about when you use the MAD versus the IQR. But they measure how spread out the data is. With my MAD is 2, my data is not that spread out, so it's spread out by about 2. Questions on that? Okay, so make sure you're able to answer these questions, whether you write it out on your paper or not, is up to you. Just be able to calculate them, say like on a quiz and stuff. The rest of the time, you have to work on that blue puzzle piece in Schoology for lesson 5, trying to get an 80% or higher, and just go back and make sure all the other ones are at that.
No.
But lesson 5 is the one where